Γεια σας, this means hello in Greek. Welcome to the Greek Solo RPG channel. This is a channel where I solo roleplay in Greek, but today's episode will be in English. And this is because this is episode number 7 in the July solo sci-fi big show that was created by Grey Army Gaming. I'm not going to do a recap of the previous episodes, but I'm going to put a link in the description down below with the playlist, so you can watch all of the previous episodes if you want to. Now, I'm going to start today's session with my health back in full health, and this is because we have received a lot of damage in the previous episodes, but in the last episode we've actually died and we were actually reset in a sense, so it makes narrative sense that I'm back to full health now. Before we begin, I wanted to mention the oddities that we have. When Grey Army Gaming created our character, Vector X, he created 3 oddities that we have with us. I'm going to try and use some of them potentially in my session today. So, the first one is an odd unmarked computer chip the size of a hand. The second one is a piece of parchment with an unintelligible script. And the third one is one half of an amulet that has been broken in 2. So those are the oddities that we have with us, and we have a few ciphers and our equipment and gear. Now, what game system am I going to be using in my session today? I'm going to be using the Void. The Void is a role-playing game from Wildfire Publishing, and this is actually pay what you want on Drive-Thru-RPG. I'm going to put a link down below for the Drive-Thru-RPG, and you can actually go online and download it for free if you want it. It's a sci-fi horror game, and it's heavily based on Cthulhu mythology and Lovecraft's mythology. Now, we will be using the system of the Void, and the system is a D6 dice pool system. We have attributes and we have skills. Whenever we want to do something, we roll a skill. Let's say our stealth, we have a skill of 3, and the linked attributes. In this case, it's grace, which we have 4. So we create our dice pool, and then we roll, and we are looking for 5s or 6s. So the successes in this system is 5 or 6. How many successes we need, it depends on the task difficulty, and we have difficulties from easy all the way up to legendary. The most common one is the average difficulty, which we only require 1 success to be successful in what we're trying to do. I'm not going to explain the combat rules of this system because we may not get into a combat, but if we have a combat encounter, I'm going to briefly pause the timer, explain the rules, and continue. Lastly, we have a fate point, just 1 fate point, and in the Void game, you use the fate point in order not to die, basically. And we have 2 tension points, and those you can use in a lot of ways, but in the context of a solo role-playing game, we will use them to re-roll dice, skill checks. So 2 tension points. Now, lastly, before we begin, I'm going to be using the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition Oracle, and this is a D100 Oracle. We roll a D100, we assign a likelihood, let's say likely, so plus 20. So we have 73 plus 20, it's 93, which gives us a yes answer. And we can get a no, a yes, or a maybe. If we get a maybe answer, I will interpret this that I need another skill check before I can deduce if it's a no or a yes. So that's it. And I'm going to start my session, and I'm going to be role-playing in the first person. Before I do that, I want to know how many times we have died previously. It was hinted in the previous episode that we have died a number of times, more than 2. We know of 2, the most recent one with a lava creature, and the one before that when we activated the monolith. But how many times have we actually died? I'm going to roll a d6 and I'm going to add 2 for the already known deaths. So how many times have we died? And we have died 6 times in total. So we are back, we have been reset back in our home. All of the images of my gruesome death, 6 previous deaths, come flooding in. I'm trying to block them out of my mind, but I cannot. They are very painfully vivid. The agony, the fear that I had every time just before I die, the pain. And this is overwhelming, and I'm trying to catch my breath. It's okay. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. I calm myself. I'm able to calm myself. And now I remember everything very, very clearly. So pieces of the puzzle are falling together and coming together. I look and I go through my pockets and I find a piece of a parchment with an unintelligible script on it. I remember now what this is, and this is a part of the Pnakotic manuscripts, Numenera, that the professor was actually investigating and studying just before he was murdered. Now, I'm going to try and read it and translate it or decipher it. I'm going to use language, which I have 4, and just one success will be enough. And I managed to read it, and I know now what it says, and I know what it does. So I put it in my pocket. I grabbed the note of the professor, the note that he sent me to meet him in the Telenar library, and I put it in my jacket as well. Now, I go out and I make my way towards Telenar library. I know that this is where every time after every death, this is where Ansel and JL picks me up. So I'm making my way over there. It's still night, it's still very, very dark. So I get to the Telenar library. Now the question I have for the Oracle is there a the TSF, like have they created a perimeter or have they cordoned the area off because of the murder? I would normally say that this is likely, but because we know that someone has infiltrated the TSF, and I guess they want everything to be done in secrecy, I would say that it is unlikely that there is a cordon of the area now. So, is there TSF guarding the perimeter of the Telenar library? This is 64 minus 20, this is 44, which constitutes a maybe. I'm going to roll notice, which is 7, and I'm going to say that if I actually see someone, that means that they are hiding, they're not very visible, they're hiding somewhere. And there is one success. So the road around the library is completely empty, there's no cordoning of the area, there's no perimeter, but with my mechanical eye, I check and I can see on the higher floors of the Telenar library, I can spot TSF agents hiding in the shadows and waiting in an ambush for me to come back to the library probably. Now I'm going to use stealth and cross the street and go all the way to the outside of the Telenar library building. Just one success is sufficient, 5, so I managed to cross the street under the cover of darkness and I get to the outside of the building. And now I'm going to start climbing up the external side of Telenar library. So I'm going to say that this is an athletics with grace. So that would be 6 dice. Just one success is sufficient and I have multiple successes, so I'm successful. I'm starting with like a very dynamic type of Assassin's Creed parkour. I run against the wall, I take 1, 2, 3 steps and I jump and I grab onto a ledge. And I start slowly and very stealthily climbing up to the glass dome. There are some footholds, there are some holes and some ledges, and when there is nothing, I just very dynamically jump vertically and grab through a ledge above, and I make my way all the way up to the glass dome. It's darkness around me and there's quite a lot of wind up here. As I reach the glass dome, I see the airship, Ansel's and JL's airships coming towards me. Now the question is, do they spot me on the glass dome? I will say that this is likely because they're actually looking for me. So do they spot me? And this is a 4 and plus 20, this is a 24. No, they don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my back on the glass dome, looking up into the night sky. And what I do is I get my glow globe out from my jacket, I put it against my chest, and I activate it just for a single second. It flashes very brightly with a blue and silver light, and I deactivate it immediately. This is enough for them to spot me, and I can see the airship now coming towards me. The question for the oracle is, has anyone else spotted me? Someone from downstairs, from the TSF agents? I'm going to leave this as possible. Has the TSF agent spotted me? 64. That means a yes. Immediately, the moment I activate my glow globe, from downstairs, from the Telenar library, the reading room, I see several glow globes coming to life, being activated, several blue-silver glow of light, and some of them are starting to move. Those are glow globes from TSF agents that are following their agents, and most of them are trying to get to me, like there's a spiral staircase and they're trying to get to the glass dome and get me. At that stage, there is a rope ladder that the airship drops down on me. As the rope ladder is dangling in front of me in the air, two of the TSF agents climb up and they open a shaft of some sort and they climb up onto the glass dome outside. Now, I'm going to try and jump across, so that would be athletics and physique with strength. I'm trying to jump and catch the rope ladder in the air. One success, and we have one success. So as they're running towards me shouting, the TSF agents, I run and I jump on the air and I manage to grab, maybe with just one hand, at the end of the rope, and I start rotating and dangling in the air. And I manage to get hold of with both hands and I start climbing up. Now they shout and they have some kind of Numenera enhanced heavy crossbows, so they're going to shoot me while I'm climbing up. I'm going to do a defense roll, which is, my defense is 7. Just one success is enough. So I'm a very difficult target. I'm dangling in the air and I'm moving up. They're shouting and two of the crossbow bolts whiz past me. As I look up, I can see that both Ansel and JL are at the top of the ladder and they're waiting for me. So as I'm climbing up, just before I get up there, JL reaches down, grabs me from my back, and very violently he manhandles me and he pulls me in. As he does this, I'm going to attempt to fall onto Ansel in an attempt to try and steal her pistol, her firearm. So I'm going to use Crime Low, which I have 6 dice, and I'm going to say that all of the commotion, the TSF agents, the bolts, and me being dragged up, just one success would be enough for me to steal her firearm. And I get it, just one success. So the moment I land on her, my hand moves very stealthily, very nimbly, and I steal her pistol from her holster and I put it inside my jacket. "The professor is dead," I say. JL is angry and he's growling. "Yes, and your sorry ass killed him." I push away and I just push him back. "Get your hands off me. He didn't die because of me, he was murdered." He walks one step towards me, angrily, and at that point, Ansel steps in between us and she says, "JL, we have pressing business to attend to. We need to get back to the expedition site immediately." So she turns and she walks and she sits down in the pilot seat and she starts piloting the airship towards the expedition site. JL min-mugs me and he sits down across me on a wooden bench. I sit down on the wooden bench as well. After a few moments, I start a monologue. I'm talking to myself, but loudly enough so both of them can hear me. "Something strange happened when I met the professor, just before he was murdered." Ansel doesn't turn to look at me, but JL is looking at me. "He had widely dilated pupils. At that time I thought that he was under the influence of some kind of drug, or maybe poisoned, or actually using a cipher, and it had that effect on him. But now I remember, now I know, that was the 1,000-yard stare. He was shell-shocked. He knew that he was going to be murdered. Most probably he had been murdered in that very spot. Again." At that last word, Ansel turns very slowly on her chair and she's looking at me very calmly, expressionless. JL turns to me. "What in the name of the Aeon priests are you talking about?" "Shh!" I cut him off. "You are the muscle of this team. You shouldn't be talking right now." This infuriates him and he stands up. "Why, you little freaking..." He notices that Ansel is completely calm and she's not moving and she's just looking at me. So he takes the hint and he stops, but he's standing up now. I continue. "He was scribbling something on a note. I caught a glimpse of it, but I didn't have time to process it before. But now I remember. Blood dripped from his nose as the nanomachines were attacking him, and a splatter of blood dripped onto that note. I didn't have time to retrieve this note. I had to run for my life. But now I remember perfectly what that note was about. I take the note that I had on me from my home. I take it out. There is a dried blood spatter at the bottom of it. It was this very same note. It looks like he was able to send it to me during one of the previous time loops. I put it back into my jacket. I believe Professor Drahlden is trapped in his own time loop. Ansel is completely emotionless and faceless and expressionless. I continue. He said something to me before he was murdered. They're on to us. At the time I thought that he was referring to the TSF, but now I know that he was talking about his murderers. His murderer was there, inside the Telenor library. I guess he couldn't control the mist of nanomachines from afar. He was an expert in hiding. I could sense him, but I couldn't find him. Now I turn to Ansel and I look at her. Luckily, you found me first. She's completely expressionless still. You led me outside and onto this airship. JL was the only one in that airship, and I noticed blinking lights like some kind of a Morse code. I turn to JL now. I'm sorry, I'm going to try and finish this scene. I'm looking at JL. I wonder who you were signaling on the ground. Both of his fists clench and his knuckles become white. Ansel is still expressionless. Before the professor died, he gave me a pouch of black seeds. I thought that these were seeds to help me gain access into the monolith. I know the real reason that he gave them to me now. You know, he was an idealist. He wanted to make the beyond habitable, even the crowd city itself. He wanted to plant ironwood trees all over the beyond. He was working on the narcotic manuscripts, a Numenera of accelerated germination. JL looks at me. Accelerated what? Spell, you dim-witted brute. A spell to make things grow faster. And that was the real reason he gave me the black seeds. He wanted to protect me from his murderers. He wanted to protect me from you two. At that point, JL screams and he starts running towards me, draws his broadsword and he's about to attack me. Ansel reaches for her pistol and she realizes that she doesn't have anything on her holster. In a blinding fast moment, I draw my own pistol and I aim at her and I shout at the top of my voice the incantation that Professor Drahlden had given to me on the piece of parchment in a previous loop. Anan Fatima! The black seeds in JL's pockets burst violently and they start flourishing and he gets entangled. There's huge black branches that goes around in all of his limbs and his torso. They squeeze. He cries in pain, his hand opens up, his sword drops to the ground. Two of those branches they move very fast and they hit him on the jaw. He falls to the ground face first, completely unconscious. He looks like he's wearing an exoskeleton of black branches. I'm full of adrenaline now. I'm aiming at her. The fact that you haven't used your nanomachines to kill me means one of three things. You either realize that you need me and my mechanical eye alive to grant you access into the inner sanctum of the monolith. You either cannot use your nanomachines so shortly after you murdering the professor, or the loud buzzing I heard when we entered the monolith were your nanomachines being destroyed by whatever defense protocol we activated in the monolith. Which one is it? She looks at me completely expressionless and she says nothing. At that point, the autopilot of the airship brings us smoothly down and we land on the same landing zone that we were a few hours ago. On the background, I can see the monolith and I can see the lava lake. At least, tell me this. What are you? And at that time, for the first time, I see a hint of a smile going through her thin lips and a glimmer of red light flashes in both of her eyes. That was the episode, that was the scene. I'm really sorry I overran. I'm very excited and thank you for letting me be part of this. I cannot wait to see how this story ends. Thank you very much for watching.